Hey there, it's me Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access, link in the description.
Lunch was different. Or at least, it felt different. The cafeteria was as loud and chaotic as always, people shoving past each other, the constant hum of overlapping conversations, the occasional burst of laughter from some table across the room. But for Martha, there was this strange undercurrent to everything. A new energy buzzing beneath the surface. Because she wasn't just sitting down for another routine lunch period. She was waiting. Waiting to see if Ava would say her name again. Waiting to see if today had really changed something. She grabbed a tray and scanned the room. Brenda was in line behind her, pretending to be interested in whatever sad excuse for a salad the cafeteria was serving. Martha nudged her. "Do I sit with her?" Brenda barely glanced up. "Who, Ava?" Martha nodded. Brenda smirked. "I don't know, babe. Do you?" Martha groaned. "Not helpful." Brenda snorted, grabbing a juice box and tossing it onto her tray. "Look, if she used your name in the middle of the hallway, she clearly doesn't care who hears it. So yeah, sit with her if you want to sit with her." Martha swallowed hard. "And if she acts weird?" Brenda shrugged. "Then you come sit with me, and I'll dramatically whisper about her from across the room." Martha let out a small, nervous laugh. "Great plan." Brenda winked. "I know." Martha inhaled. Then, before she could talk herself out of it, she stepped forward and headed straight for Ava's table. Ava was sitting with a few other people, lazily scrolling on her phone between bites of her sandwich. She barely glanced up as Martha set her tray down across from her. "Sup," she said, like this was totally normal. Like Martha always sat here. Martha's heart pounded. "Hey." She waited. Waited for Ava to say it again. To acknowledge it. To confirm that this morning hadn't just been some fluke. But Ava just kept scrolling, eating her sandwich, completely unbothered. Martha clenched her fingers together under the table. Was this good? Was this bad? She wasn't sure. She wasn't sure of anything anymore. One of Ava's friends, a girl named Danny, nodded at her. "So, you and Ava friends now?" Martha blinked. I guess." Ava smirked, but didn't look up from her phone. "We had a hallway moment." Danny snorted. "Damn. A hallway moment? That's serious." Ava grinned. "Life-changing." Martha's stomach flipped. Ava still wasn't saying her name again. And that bothered her more than it should have. She focused on her food, trying to act normal, trying to pretend that she wasn't just sitting here waiting for something that might never come. Then, "Hey, Martha, can you pass me a napkin?" Martha's breath caught. She looked up. Ava was still scrolling, still acting like nothing was different. Like she had always called her that. Like she didn't realize how much it meant. Martha's fingers trembled slightly as she reached for the stack of napkins and slid one across the table. "Thanks," Ava muttered, still distracted by her phone. Martha stared at her. She had said it again. Casually. Like it was just her name. And maybe that was the most important part of all. Because Ava wasn't making it a big deal. She wasn't asking questions. She wasn't acting like anything was different. She had just accepted it. Martha swallowed hard. Brenda was right. People notice things. Maybe Ava had noticed before Martha even said anything. Maybe she had been waiting too. Maybe this was Ava's way of telling her I see you. Not with a long conversation. Not with a deep heart-to-heart. Just with a name. Her name. Martha exhaled, the tightness in her chest easing just a little. She was still scared. Still waiting for the next step. Still figuring out how to get there. But for now, this was enough. Because today, she wasn't invisible. Today, she was Martha. And someone else finally saw her too. Martha could still hear it. "Hey, Martha, can you pass me a napkin?" That moment replayed over and over in her head as the rest of the school day dragged on. Ava had said her name again. So casually. So naturally. Like it had always been her name. Like it had never been Martin. And the thing that unsettled her the most? How much she wanted to hear it again. She had spent so much time waiting for people to see her, for someone to acknowledge that she existed. And now that it was finally happening, she felt like she was standing on the edge of something huge. Something she couldn't undo. Something she didn't want to undo. She tapped her fingers against the desk, barely listening to the teacher as they droned on about some history assignment. Her mind was still in the cafeteria, still sitting across from Ava, still gripping the edge of her tray, her pulse hammering as she passed over a napkin as she realized this is real. Ava knew. Maybe she didn't know everything, but she knew enough. Martha exhaled slowly, shifting in her seat. She was scared. She was so scared. But for the first time, she wasn't scared of being invisible. She was scared of being seen. Because this was happening. This was real. And she wasn't ready for the whole world to catch up. But she wanted it to. And that terrified her. By the time the final bell rang, Martha's thoughts were a tangled mess. She shoved her books into her bag and headed toward the exit, barely paying attention to the noise of students flooding the hallways. Then, Martha, her heart stopped. She turned so fast she nearly tripped over her own feet. Ava was standing by her locker, looking completely unbothered, like she hadn't just said Martha's name out loud in a crowded hallway. Like it wasn't a huge deal. Martha swallowed. Yeah? Ava smirked slightly. You walking home? Martha blinked. Yeah. Cool. Walk with me. Martha's stomach flipped. Oh! Okay. Ava shut her locker and fell into step beside her like this was normal. Like they had always walked home together. Martha felt hyper-aware of herself, of every step she took, of the way her cardigan swayed slightly as she moved, of how easy Ava made this seem. She wanted to ask. She needed to ask. You called me Martha again. The words sat on her tongue, heavy, waiting to fall. But she couldn't make herself say them. Not yet. They stepped outside, the afternoon air crisp, the sky streaked with pale clouds. Ava tucked her hands into her pockets, glancing at her. So, you're friends with Brenda, huh? Martha blinked. Yeah. I mean, she's my sister. Ava raised an eyebrow. She's your sister? Martha frowned. Yeah? Ava snorted. Huh, that makes so much more sense now. Martha tilted her head. What does? Ava smirked. She was giving me a look at lunch. Like she was trying to figure out if I was gonna be cool or not. Martha groaned. Oh my God. Ava chuckled. She's got your back, huh? Martha swallowed. Yeah, she does. Ava nodded like she respected that. That's good. Martha hesitated, then took a deep breath. This was her chance. She had to ask. So, you're just calling me Martha now? Ava didn't even blink. Yeah. Martha's stomach flipped. Why? Ava shrugged. Because it's your name? Martha's breath caught. Ava shot her a look, like she was trying to figure her out. Did you not want me to? Martha shook her head quickly. No. I mean, yes. I mean, I do want you to. It's just. She exhaled, running a hand through her hair. I didn't expect you to just accept it like that. Ava smirked. Why not? Martha let out a nervous laugh. Because no one else has? Ava hummed thoughtfully. Well, that's dumb. Martha blinked. What? Ava shrugged. I mean, it's your name. People should just use it. Martha's chest tightened. Because it was so simple to Ava. So obvious. Like there was never a question of whether or not she deserved to be called Martha. Like it was just a fact. Martha swallowed hard. I don't know what to say to that. Ava smirked. You don't have to say anything. Martha's throat ached. Because this was real. She was real. And someone else saw her now. Not just Michelle. Not just Brenda. Someone else. Ava bumped her shoulder lightly. Come on, Martha. You overthink everything. Martha inhaled sharply. Because that was the first time anyone had said her name in a way that felt casual. Comfortable. Like she had always been Martha. Like there was never a time when she wasn't. She pressed her lips together, feeling the soft layer of gloss still there. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was seen. And this time, she wasn't afraid of it. Martha had never walked home with Ava before. And if someone had told her a week ago that this would be happening, that she'd be walking side by side with Ava Kelly, feeling seen, feeling real, she would have laughed in their face. But now? Now it was happening. And it wasn't just happening, it felt natural. Like this wasn't some huge deal to Ava. Like she had always called her Martha. Like she had always known. Martha adjusted the strap of her backpack, sneaking a glance at Ava. She still looked effortlessly cool, her hands tucked into the pockets of her jacket, her gaze unfocused as if she was lost in her own thoughts. Martha chewed on her lip. So, why did you start calling me Martha? Ava didn't even hesitate. Because that's what you told me your name was. Martha blinked. Yeah, but... Ava tilted her head. What? You thought I was gonna argue with you about your own name. Martha exhaled sharply, shaking her head. I don't know what I thought. Ava smirked. You overthink everything, huh? Martha groaned. I do not. Ava gave her a look. Martha sighed. Okay, maybe I do. Ava chuckled, kicking a loose pebble on the sidewalk. Relax, dude. You said your name was Martha. So that's what I'm calling you. Martha's chest tightened. Because that shouldn't have felt like a big deal. But it was. She had spent so long bracing for resistance, for confusion, for questioning, for pushback. And Ava had just accepted it. No second guessing. No hesitation. Just acceptance. Martha swallowed hard. Did you? She hesitated. Did you already know? Ava glanced at her. Know what? Martha's heart pounded. That I wasn't. Martin. Ava was quiet for a moment, like she was thinking about it. Then she shrugged. I don't know if I ever thought about it, but I guess it makes sense. Martha frowned. Makes sense how? Ava smirked slightly. You never really seemed like a Martin to me. Martha's breath hitched. Ava continued, like, don't get me wrong, I didn't know or anything. But looking back? Yeah, it tracks. Martha's fingers curled into her sleeves. Tracks how? Ava shrugged again. I dunno. It's hard to explain. Some people just don't fit in the boxes other people put them in. She paused, then added, you were always just kinda waiting for people to figure it out, huh? Martha's throat ached. Because yes. Yes! That was exactly it. She had been waiting. Waiting for someone to see her. To recognize her. To understand without her having to explain it first. And somehow Ava had. Even before Martha had said anything. Martha swallowed, her voice quieter now. You're taking this really well. Ava smirked. What? Did you expect me to freak out? Martha huffed out a laugh. Kinda. Ava rolled her eyes. Dude, it's not that deep. Martha stared at her. It is that deep, though. Ava raised an eyebrow. Is it? Martha frowned. Yeah, it's, she hesitated, trying to find the words. It's huge. For me. It's my whole life. Ava studied her for a second, then nodded. Okay, I get that. It's huge for you. But for me, it's just you telling me who you are. And me believing you. Martha's stomach flipped. She hadn't realized how badly she needed to hear that. Ava wasn't treating this like some massive revelation. She wasn't acting like it was strange or shocking. She was treating it like it was the most normal thing in the world. Because to her, it was. Martha exhaled, her heart hammering. I think you might be the first person who's ever just believed me right away. Ava smirked. Well, I am known for my impeccable judgment. Martha rolled her eyes but smiled. Right. Ava bumped her shoulder lightly. Look, I don't know what the rest of your journey looks like. I don't know what you still have to figure out. But if you're waiting for some big moment where the world suddenly gets it, you might be waiting a while. Martha swallowed. Yeah, I know. Ava nodded. But that doesn't mean you have to wait forever. You already are Martha. So just be her. Martha inhaled sharply. She was Martha. She always had been. And now at least one more person knew it. Maybe the rest of the world wasn't caught up yet. Maybe there were still 1,000 steps left to take. But this step? This step had changed everything. Martha tugged at her sleeves, feeling the soft fabric against her fingers, the weight of her cardigan grounding her. She felt different. Not because she had changed overnight. Not because she suddenly had all the answers, but because she wasn't waiting anymore. Not for Ava. Not for Brenda. Not for anyone. She was already here. She was already Martha. And that was enough. For today. For now. For her. Martha kept glancing at Ava out of the corner of her eye as they walked. She wasn't sure why. Maybe because she was still processing what had just happened. Or maybe because she was waiting, half expecting Ava to take it back. To act like calling her Martha had been some offhand mistake. Like this had all been some weird, fleeting moment and tomorrow, things would go back to how they were before. But Ava didn't say anything else. She just walked beside her, hands stuffed in her pockets, completely unbothered. Like this was normal. Like this was just life. Martha didn't know how to handle that. She had spent so long bracing for the worst, preparing herself for disbelief, for confusion, for someone to push back and say, "No, you can't be Martha because I've always known you as Martin." But Ava had just accepted it. No questions. No hesitation. Just, okay. Cool. Martha swallowed, her heart still hammering. She should be relieved. She was relieved. But she was also terrified. Because now that someone else knew, it felt real. More real than it had ever felt before. Ava saw her. And if Ava could see her, that meant other people could too. And wasn't that what she had wanted? To stop feeling invisible? To have the world finally catch up to her? She took a slow, shaky breath, gripping the straps of her backpack. Maybe this wasn't about wanting people to see her. Maybe it was about being scared of what would happen when they did. Ava suddenly slowed her steps, coming to a stop near the edge of the sidewalk. Martha blinked, startled out of her thoughts. What? Ava nodded toward a corner store up ahead. I'm stopping for a drink. You want something? Martha hesitated. Oh. She hadn't expected this. She had assumed they'd just keep walking until their paths split, each heading home like normal. But this? This was something different. Something casual. Something that felt almost like a routine. Martha shifted on her feet. Yeah. Sure. Ava smirked. Cool. She led the way into the store, the bell above the door jingling softly as they stepped inside. The air smelled like old wood and candy. Martha had been here 100 times before, usually in passing, usually with Brenda. But right now, it felt like something new. She followed Ava toward the coolers, watching as she grabbed an energy drink without even looking at the options. Martha lingered for a second, scanning the rows of bottled teas, juices, sodas. She should just grab something quick, keep moving, not make this weird. But instead, she caught herself reaching for something she normally wouldn't. A flavored iced coffee. Something small, but different. Something that felt just a little more her. She held it in her hands for a second, feeling the cool condensation on her fingertips. She had never let herself buy things like this before. She had always stuck to whatever was expected. Safe. Normal. But today? Today she was doing things her way. Ava glanced over, raising an eyebrow. Coffee, huh? Martha swallowed. Yeah. Why? Ava smirked. No reason. Just didn't take you for a coffee person. Martha hesitated. She wasn't, at least, not openly. But she had always wanted to be. She lifted the bottle slightly. Trying something new. Ava's smirk deepened. I respect that. Martha's stomach flipped. She cleared her throat, following Ava toward the counter. Ava pulled out a crumpled $5 bill and handed it to the cashier. I got hers too. Martha's brain stalled. Wait, what? Ava shrugged. It's just a drink. Don't overthink it. Martha opened her mouth to argue, but stopped. Because something about the way Ava said it, so casual, so normal, made her heart do something strange. It wasn't a big deal, but it felt like one. She swallowed hard, nodding. Thanks. Ava just grabbed her drink and pushed open the door, stepping back outside. Martha followed, her fingers tightening around the coffee bottle. The world outside felt different somehow, like she had crossed an invisible line. Like today wasn't just another day. Like she wasn't just the same person she had been yesterday. Because now, she had proof. Ava had called her Martha, had treated her like herself, had seen her, and had accepted it. Martha let out a slow, unsteady breath. She took a sip of the coffee, letting the taste settle on her tongue. It was new. It was different. It was hers. And she wasn't going back. Martha took another sip of her iced coffee, the cold sweetness settling in her mouth. She wasn't sure if she liked it yet. The flavor was richer than she expected, not as sugary as the drinks she usually had. But that was the thing about trying something new, wasn't it? Sometimes it took time to know. Ava walked beside her, sipping her energy drink, completely relaxed, like this was just another afternoon, like she hadn't just flipped Martha's entire world upside down by calling her Martha like it was the easiest thing in the world. Martha wasn't sure how to act now. What was she supposed to say? Would Ava think she was being weird if she thanked her again? Would she think it was annoying if Martha kept making a big deal out of it? Ava must have noticed the tension in her shoulders because she glanced over, raising an eyebrow. You always this quiet? Martha blinked. Huh? Ava smirked. I mean, not that I'm complaining, but you seem like you're thinking really hard about something. Martha let out a sharp breath, adjusting her grip on the coffee bottle. I guess I am. Ava tilted her head. Want to share with the class? Martha hesitated. Then, before she could talk herself out of it, you're the first person to call me Martha at school. Ava didn't react immediately. She just took another sip of her drink, watching her carefully. Then she shrugged. So, Martha's chest tightened. So that's a big deal. Ava arched an eyebrow. Why? Martha frowned. Because no one else has. Ava hummed thoughtfully. Do they know? Martha swallowed. Not really. Ava nodded. So then it makes sense, doesn't it? Martha hesitated. I guess. Ava turned toward her, her expression unreadable. Are you waiting for people to figure it out on their own? Martha tensed. I don't know. Ava studied her for a second. You do know. You just don't want to say it out loud yet. Martha clenched her jaw, staring straight ahead. It's not that simple. Ava smirked slightly. It is that simple. You're Martha. I call you Martha. Other people don't. The only way they're gonna start is if you tell them. Martha's stomach flipped. Because she knew that. She knew that was the next step. But knowing and doing were two very different things. Ava took another sip of her drink unfazed. Look, I'm not saying you have to announce it over the school intercom or whatever. But you are waiting. You're waiting for people to just know without you having to say anything. And babe? That's not how people work. Martha flinched. Babe? Ava smirked. You're dodging the point. Martha groaned. I hate that you're making sense right now. Ava chuckled. Yeah, well, I have my moments. Martha exhaled, taking another sip of her coffee. She wanted people to know. She wanted to stop hearing the wrong name every day. But telling one person, even someone as cool and easygoing as Ava, had been terrifying. How was she supposed to do it again? With people like Ryan? Like Jake? Like her mom? Her fingers curled around the bottle in her hands. I don't know how to tell them. Ava shrugged. Then don't. Martha blinked. What? Ava smirked. If you don't want to say it, don't say it. Just be it. Martha frowned. That's not how it works. Ava shot her a look. Why not? Martha opened her mouth, then stopped. Because. Why not? She had been waiting for the right moment. Waiting to say it. Waiting for the world to notice. But maybe she didn't have to announce it. Maybe she could just be her. Maybe she already was. Martha swallowed. What if people don't get it? Ava took another sip of her drink, then said simply, then that's their problem, not yours. Martha's breath hitched. Because it sounded so simple when Ava said it. But maybe it was simple. Maybe she was making it harder than it needed to be. Maybe she was waiting too much. Maybe she had been waiting for permission from her mom, from her friends, from the world, when the only permission she really needed was her own. Martha swallowed hard, staring at the sidewalk as they walked. She could do this. She was doing this. And tomorrow? She'd do a little more. Because she was Martha. And that wasn't changing. Not now. Not ever. By the time Martha got home, her mind was still spinning. Not in a bad way, exactly. Just full. Ava's words wouldn't leave her alone. Then don't say it. Just be it. That's their problem, not yours. It had sounded simple when she said it. Like it was the easiest thing in the world. But was it really that easy? Could Martha just be? She kicked off her shoes and dropped her bag by the door, her body moving on autopilot. The house was quiet. Brenda was probably still out somewhere. Their mom was likely running late from work. For once, Martha was alone. And she needed that. She climbed the stairs, heading straight to her room. As soon as she shut the door behind her, she let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Everything still felt so big. She had told someone. She had been seen. And she wasn't sure what to do with that. She sat on the edge of her bed, pulling her knees up, wrapping her arms around them. She wasn't invisible anymore. Not to Ava. Not to Michelle. Not to Brenda. But to the rest of the world? She was still waiting. Still stuck between who she was and who everyone thought she was. She reached for her phone. She hadn't told Michelle about today yet. And Michelle would freak out. Martha hesitated, then typed quickly. Martha, Ava called me Martha at school today. A few seconds later, Michelle, oh my God. Martha smiled slightly. Then, Michelle, like? In front of people? Martha, yes. Michelle, I'm screaming. Martha huffed out a quiet laugh, shaking her head. Michelle was the only person who had this level of energy. And honestly, Martha kind of needed it right now. Michelle, how did it feel? Martha hesitated. How did it feel? She chewed on her lip, trying to find the right words. Then, Martha, weird. Huge. Like my brain couldn't process it in real time. Michelle, dude. That's amazing. Martha exhaled, staring at the screen. Michelle was right. It was amazing. But it was also overwhelming. Because if Ava could say it like it was normal, if Ava could just accept it, then what was stopping the rest of the world? What was stopping her? Martha swallowed, fingers tightening around her phone. She had been waiting so long to be seen. And now that it was finally happening, she wasn't sure if she was ready for what came next. A little while later, the front door opened downstairs. Martha heard Brenda's voice, followed by the familiar sound of their mom setting her keys down on the counter. She stiffened. Because as much as today had been huge, her mom still didn't know. And that was a whole other mountain she hadn't even begun to climb. She could barely even imagine telling her. Not because she thought her mom would hate her for it, but because, what if she just didn't get it? What if she brushed it off? What if she ignored it? That might be worse than outright rejection. Martha swallowed hard, staring at her bedroom door. She wasn't ready. Not yet. She stood up and crossed the room to her mirror. She looked at herself. The cardigan, the jeans, the faint shimmer of gloss on her lips. She looked like herself. She felt like herself. And even if no one else in this house knew it yet, she did. She pressed her hands against the dresser, steadying herself. She was Martha. She had always been Martha. And when the time came to tell her mom, she wouldn't ask for permission. She wouldn't wait for approval. She would just be her. Just like Ava had said. And the world would catch up. Eventually. Martha wasn't ready to go downstairs yet. She knew she should. Dinner was probably happening soon, and if she stayed holed up in her room too long, Brenda would eventually come knocking, making some joke about her turning into a dramatic recluse. But after today, after everything, she needed a moment to breathe. She sat down at her desk, absent-mindedly running her fingers along the edges of her notebook. She should probably be doing something. Homework. Reading. Anything to keep her brain from spinning itself into knots. But instead, she reached for a pen and, without thinking, wrote one word in the center of the page. Martha. She stared at it for a long time. It still felt huge to see it like that. Still felt like something secret, something fragile. Like if she looked at it too long, it might disappear. But it didn't. It was real. She traced the letters with her fingertip, her breath slow, steady. It was just a name. Just her name. But the world didn't know that yet. Not her classmates. Not her mom. And God, she wanted them to. But she was still scared. Her chest tightened. She couldn't stay in this in-between space forever. Couldn't keep living in a world where only a handful of people knew who she was. But the thought of saying it, of sitting across from her mom and just telling her, felt impossible. She wanted to believe it would be easy. That her mom would just get it, the same way Ava had. But what if she didn't? What if she just nodded and moved on, like it wasn't a big deal? Like Martha was just trying on a phase? Martha swallowed hard. That might be worse than outright rejection. Because at least rejection meant it mattered. She let out a slow breath, staring at the name on the page. She couldn't control how people reacted. She could only control herself. And right now, the only thing she could do was keep moving forward. Step by step. Even when it felt impossible. Even when it felt terrifying. Because she wasn't going back. Not now. Not ever. A knock on the door made her jump. Martha. Her breath caught. Brenda. Martha scrambled, slamming the notebook shut, as if her own name was some kind of secret that needed hiding. Yeah. Brenda pushed the door open, raising an eyebrow. Are you just gonna mope up here all night, or are you actually coming down to eat? Martha sighed. I'm not moping. Brenda smirked. You so are. Martha groaned. Brenda. Brenda flopped onto the bed, stretching out dramatically. Come on, babe. You're acting like you had some big life-altering moment today. Martha clenched her jaw. I did. Brenda blinked. Her expression shifted slightly, just enough for Martha to see the recognition in her eyes. Then, softer, Ava? Martha nodded, crossing her arms. She called me Martha. Twice. In front of people. Brenda let out a low whistle. Damn. Yeah. Brenda sat up, watching her carefully. And that's a bad thing? Martha swallowed. No. She hesitated, shaking her head. It's not bad. It's just big. Brenda nodded slowly. Because it made everything feel real. Martha inhaled sharply. Yeah. Brenda studied her for a moment, then smirked. Well, babe, welcome to the real world. You're officially in it now. Martha let out a breathy laugh. That's what scares me. Brenda nudged her lightly. It shouldn't. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Martha hesitated. Then why does it feel like I'm still waiting? Brenda's smirk faded slightly. Because you still haven't told Mom. Martha flinched. Because, yeah. That was the last big hurdle, wasn't it? She could survive school. She could deal with people like Jake still calling her Martin. She could handle the waiting, the small steps, the slow progress. But telling her mom? That was different. That was home. That was something she couldn't just brush off or ignore. Brenda's voice softened. You don't have to do it tonight. But you know it's coming. Martha swallowed hard. I know. Brenda nodded, standing up. All right. Now that we've had our deep, soul-searching moment, can we please eat? Martha sighed, running a hand through her hair. Yeah, okay. Brenda smirked. Good. Because I'm starving and I need moral support while I lie about how much I love Mom's weird quinoa experiment. Martha laughed, shaking her head. You're the worst. Brenda grinned. And yet, you love me. Martha rolled her eyes, but followed her out of the room. The conversation with her mom was coming. It had to. But tonight? Tonight, she'd eat dinner. She'd exist. She'd keep moving forward. One step at a time.
Please subscribe my channel for the next part. And visit my Patreon page for early access.